Hello, I'm Supervisor Don Knabe. I'm pleased to welcome you back to another episode of Dialed In. Have you recently purchased a car, a tank of gas, or a new pair of shoes? Maybe you're a small business owner selling your products overseas. Chances are what you are buying and selling move through one of the two largest economic hubs in the entire United States, the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles. Encompassing over 15,000 acres, the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles are two of the busiest ports in this country and are the gateway to international trade. Each year, nearly 15 million cargo containers pass through the ports, bringing goods and products across the ocean, creating millions of jobs, injecting billions of dollars into our economy. This month, I'm pleased to welcome the executives of the two largest ports in the Western Hemisphere to discuss their impact on our country's economy as well as the global trade industry. I hope you will enjoy the show.
When Connie Andrews got married, her maid of honor, Caitlin, made some unauthorized alterations to her dress. And Connie realized Caitlin was not her friend. When Connie got Satellite, she joined the millions who don't get true on-demand. And she realized Satellite was not her friend. Now Connie has Charter, with over 10,000 titles, many free. It's the on-demand she always wanted. Take it from Connie. Satellite is not your friend. Watch over 10,000 titles on demand with Charter.
Welcome back to Dialed In. My guests today are John Slangerup, Chief Executive of the Port of Long Beach, and Gene Soroka, Executive Director of the Port of Los Angeles. John and Gene have served as the directors of their respective ports since only last June. And they came to the port, though, that's a short period of time, nearly 60 years of experience in the global marketplace. Thanks for joining me today, gentlemen.
Good to be here.
Thank you.
Well, let's start with just some general information. You know where the ports are. I know where the ports are. Some folks know where the ports are. A little bit of news out there. But when did the ports, each of your ports, open?
From the LA side, we opened in 1907, so more than 100 years of history behind us.
And is any part of that from then till now, has there been any expansion of the port of Los Angeles, or is it still sort of the same property lines and footprint?
Oh, it's been expanded greatly over that time period. Today we have more than 40 different vessel services calling our port, and this past calendar year we moved more than 8.4 million TEUs through the complex.
Wow.
Similar history, 1911, so we're coming up on 104 years as a port, and the same thing, you would not recognize the face of the port today compared to when it started.
You know, some of the old, I've had the opportunity over the years to see, been down there at various events or tours, you know, the boat tours, which I'm going to mention to the public at the end, were phenomenal. But to go into some of the buildings and see some of the historic pictures, I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal to see where you are today and the big pieces of things out there to take the containers off and what it used to be. It's pretty historic. So where do the ports, as it relates to the rest of the world, sort of rank in size?
If you combine our two ports, we're number 8 in the world. But the unique aspect is that unlike some of the larger ports around the world, we do just about all of our cargo for local consumption, and our exports are of local design as well. Where other ports around the world have a high component of relay cargo, all the cargo coming to us and exiting from this location are right here in the United States.
And at Los Angeles, they're slightly larger than we are, particularly in terms of the container volume. We're slightly larger on the non-container volume, so we move a lot of petroleum products and other types of bulk cargoes, which make up about 1/3 of our business. So a little bit different mix, but still both from a container perspective is a very significant footprint.
So in that 100 years, I mean, that's a long period of time, and the product mix has probably changed over that time. But at the same time, what makes, I mean, 107 years, 104, or whatever the number was, what made Los Angeles and Long Beach the ideal location they appear to be for those of us here today and now, such an ideal location for ports?
Well, obviously, I mean, the deep water, right? Natural deep water, port operations have allowed us to expand dramatically. And of course, probably the number one thing is we are the shortest route from Asia into the interior of the U.S. with the best infrastructure of anywhere. So if we're running well, we are, in fact, the fastest and most efficient way to move cargo from Asia to the interior markets of the U.S.
So that speaks both for product as well as the petroleum products and everything else, correct?
Absolutely.
Correct. Yeah, there are more than 100 trains a day that move in and out of the LA basin to bring cargo to the interior, as John said. We have more than 1.8 billion square feet of warehousing and cold storage at near dock locations. And right out in the Inland Empire, a global look at what we can do from a supply chain standpoint on rehandling cargo and distributing it throughout the United States.
And there goes the transportation issue for all of us, right? How it gets to the Alameda Corridor. I tell everyone, I'm on the Alameda Corridor board. It goes straight north, and those trains don't turn left to go into the ocean. They turn right and go out throughout America, and it's a big issue. So I think you mentioned early on, but how many ships visit the port each day under normal circumstances?
On our side, about 6 ships a day if you break it down. We had more than 2,000 calls last year.
Yeah, we're similar. We have 5 to 8 ships a day. Different mix of ships, but still similar size.
So when you say 6, 5, 6, 8, that's in and out, right? Or do they stay there all day?
They'll stay there all day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk some cargo issues. Who are our largest international trade partners at each of the ports?
Probably similar.
Yeah, I would think so. China, Japan, Korea are the top 3 trading partners today, and will continue to grow based on what we see right now.
Taiwan and Vietnam are coming on strong, and we have a lot of Latin America business coming in. You know, so it's really becoming pretty diversified. And as East Asia goes through its transformation, China in particular, to more of a consumer society and higher priced goods, you're seeing the trade pattern shift continually. So we're following those trade patterns. We're making sure that we are building those relationships and making sure that as it goes further south in Asia, that we continue to get that business.
So I mean, that's the good movement of goods over there, sort of flip-flopping a little bit. Now, on export side, what are the kinds of exports that go out through both the ports?
For us, it's mostly petroleum-based products with a bit of the hard goods, furniture and things like that. But principally, we're less agriculture-based, at least at the Port of Long Beach.
Yeah, today on our side, big on the recyclables piece, both paper and metal, as well as the agricultural products, and believe it or not, pet supplies come in as a strong number 3 as well.
Is that right?
Yes.
That's an amazing product. They do a lot of plastics on the export too, on the recycle piece, right?
That's right.
So what, as we look around, I mean, what kinds of goods do our consumers, you know, the average person, say just here locally, what kind of goods and services? Just about everything, right? From toys to...
Pretty much everything you're wearing with or playing with.
Yeah. So the ports don't just... Someone said that they don't just accommodate cargo ships, that you have some cruise ships in there from time to time.
Well, on our side, that's handled by the city. We transferred over responsibility for our cruise operations to the city, and that's under the city manager now, but I think in your case, you run that.
Yeah, we do. This year we're estimating about 120 to 125 passenger ship calls and more than 580,000 visitors this year.
Wow. They do a lot of things down there across the Harbor Boulevard too. So.
That's correct.
Well, we're going to cover some other things in the next piece, so with that, thank you, and we'll be back in a moment.
When Dennis Walker was in high school, his locker partner, Dave, stole his girlfriend. And Dennis realized Dave was not his friend. When Dennis got satellite, he also got an unreliable signal. And he realized satellite was not his friend. Now he has Charter and a reliable weatherproof signal, just like thousands of others who switch every month. Take it from Dennis. Satellite is not your friend. Get a reliable signal, rain or shine, with Charter.
Welcome back to Dialed In. I'm joined by John Slangerup, Chief Executive of the Port of Long Beach, and Gene Soroka, Executive Director of the Port of Los Angeles. In our last segment, we talked about the ports in general, and now we'd like to talk more about some of the economic impacts that these ports make here, not only locally, but nationally as well, too. So we're still coming back from the worst recession that we've ever had. How did the economic slowdown impact the shipping and trade of the ports? I mean, I don't know what the beginning cycle was for you. Maybe you felt it ahead of what we felt it here personally, each of you, and what that trailer has been coming back.
I was living in Dubai at the time when the recession first started to reach around the world. In looking back at the historical numbers at the Port of Los Angeles, we started to see a dip in cargo volumes around the fourth quarter of 2008. And it took about 15 months before we started to see a steady rise in volume once again.
Yeah, how about you?
For us, we saw from 2007 to 2009, we hit a peak in 2007. By 2009, we were off 30%. So we've been digging to try to catch up with that for a long time. And the good news is that we're back pretty much to pre-recession levels. So our growth the last 3 years have been quite strong.
So, I mean, when you say you're back, I mean, you're back in the sense of the base year being like 2008?
2007, yeah.
2007, right. 2008. Wow, that's a pretty dramatic rise. I mean, it's one of those things you don't know. I mean, like real estate, you sort of bounce and weave, but so it's been sort of this way, steady uptick?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in transportation in all forms, including ours, has always been a really strong leading indicator of the economy. So the economy is very strong, and it's a result of what you're seeing in the trade side.
So on your side then, did you see it maybe before we felt it here, maybe something on the East Coast was happening, I mean, as far as product and oil and those kinds of things, import, export?
Absolutely. We definitely saw it before the full impact of the recession hit.
So is there anything like lessons learned during this difficult time, recession? I know both of you were not here through all of that, but maybe something happened that to help you stabilize the process over the upcoming years?
Oh, absolutely. I think it renewed the energy to have a line of sight that would allow for an understanding of the upticks and possible levers within the industry. Managing cost and business process is always of paramount importance. We see that the gap between supply and demand in the marine shipping industry on the container side is something to watch very carefully. There are more than 285 ships that will be delivered by the end of next year, greater than 7,500 TEUs. So there's more capacity coming into the market. We're going to have to really narrow down with the waterborne deployment architecture, our customers, and work through solutions to the development of managing these next generation of ships.
So that's all part of that's the growth and the digging deeper of the ocean and the bridge and the whole thing. Is that correct?
That's right. And for us, as well as LA, I mean, we really took that time to start focusing on where the puck was going to be. Started skating to it, and in our case it was big ships. So we built out infrastructure to allow us today to handle all the big ship volume that we're getting. Had we not done that investment and that planning, we would not have been ready.
Because that has to sort of be on the forefront, because that's not something you wake up tomorrow and say, let's start doing it.
That's right.
So each of you are a foreign trade zone. So how does that play into the economics of each of the ports?
Well, it improves obviously the efficiency and effectiveness and competitiveness of companies that otherwise can kind of either defer or be exempted from tariffs related to the imports. And so it allows particularly the manufacturing sector to be much more efficient, much more competitive.
In addition, it creates value-added service jobs, packaging, kitting, tagging, and ticketing, and refining products that can be moved then to the retail level swiftly.
So speaking of jobs, so in today's marketplace, as it relates, as you sit here today, how many people do each of the ports employ? Well, directly,
we have about 600, just under 600 people directly employed, and that's up by about 10% over the last couple of years.
In LA, we have about 930 folks in our department, and that base continues to rise as well.
So, and those are direct, and then as you know, indirect jobs, the shippers or longshoremen, all those kinds of things. How many people are? Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big number.
It's a big number for Long Beach. We employ directly about 30,000 people, which is about 1 out of every 8 jobs in the city, and we estimate that we employ about 180,000 jobs, or affect 180,000 jobs in the region. And then, of course, nationally, it's well over a million jobs.
So those are the pieces that people don't see on paper, right. But that's the dramatic impact, the goods movement, and those kinds of things. What about the Port of Los Angeles?
On the LA side, we estimate regionally to account for about 830,000 jobs, about 1.5 million in the state of California, and about 3.6 million throughout the United States that touch that supply chain work.
I know every time we've had to slow down either because of union issues or things like that, whether it be a medical clinic, something like that, once you, that constituent or that consumer gets to move someplace else, it's a lot of work to bring them back, bring them back home, and at the end of the day, that hurts everyone in the process. So particularly from a competition standpoint, I would imagine right now.
Right. And it's not just a union issue. There are many areas of the supply chain that need to be improved. And John and I are working very closely. We'll have an announcement coming out quite soon as to how we're going to cooperate even further on some workable solutions within the global supply chain. So it's not just here in Los Angeles we're feeling the effect of the big ships, the alliances, and the planning that goes along with the conveyance process. But we have some pretty good ideas that we'd like to get the stakeholders at a table and start talking about how we can solution these.
And the media has, has really focused in on labor, but as Gene points out, I mean, there's a number of issues that have been big contributors to congestion and big contributors to the current backlog problem we have. But the fact of the matter is there's answers to all of those. We know what the problems are, and I think that as a port complex, we can knock this out.
Well, I think, I mean, I know that you're both competitors from time to time on various lines and things, but at the end of the day, it really works well when you're talking and like that, because, I mean, that economizes and efficient. The efficiency that you're able to get speaking together. I remember back when I was on the Homeland Security Commission, one of the things that I found with all the grant bidding was that the Port of Los Angeles was doing one and the Port of Long Beach was doing one, and I finally brought the port folks together and the mayors together and said, hey, why don't we compete together? Because at 5 o'clock on a Friday, they don't really care whether it's Port of Los Angeles, Port of Long Beach. If we've got a problem, we've got to figure a way to get out and help people. So it's good to hear that in addition to that labor piece, like you say, that the media focuses on, you're working on the other issues as well.
Absolutely, and we do have a history of working together. We've been sanctioned by the FMC for the better part of a decade to work on areas of safety, security, environmental programs, infrastructure, etc. There are more issues that we'll be able to work on together. John and I are in lockstep on how we want to help the industry and enable our customer partners. So we'll be doing some very good work down line.
Yeah, I like to refer to it as co-opetition. We cooperate on many, many levels, but when it comes to the customer, if we get one of his customers and he gets one of ours, then the region wins.
That's
if
right.
we lose it to someplace else, the region loses.
And we're going to talk about that competition and possible movement in the next segment. Again, thank you. We'll be right back.
When Connie Andrews got married, her maid of honor, Caitlin, made some unauthorized alterations to her dress, and Connie realized Caitlin was not her friend. When Connie got Satellite, she joined the millions who don't get true on-demand, and she realized Satellite was not her friend. Now Connie has Charter, with over 10,000 titles, many free. It's the on-demand she always wanted. Take it from Connie. Satellite is not your friend. Watch over 10,000 titles on demand with Charter.
Welcome back to Dialed In. I'm once again joined by John Slangerup, Chief Executive of the Port of Long Beach, and Gene Soroka, Executive Director of the Port of Los Angeles. We've talked about the economic impacts of the two ports, but now we want to get into the future of the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles and what challenges are ahead. So if you sit back and look, we've talked about a lot of different things. What is the biggest threat that ports face as our economy and the world economy continues to grow?
Certainly diversion of cargo. I mean, the current concern we both have is all about a lot of small, hungry ports wanting our business and our jobs. And we're talking about Canada, we're talking about Mexico, and of course we're talking about the East Coast, small ports there that are growing very rapidly. The fact of the matter is that everyone is investing heavily in port infrastructure. They're getting better at what they do. And we have to watch ourselves because nothing's taken for granted here. We have to work hard every day to win our business.
The industry economics are evolving very rapidly, and that call for capital has started to move in a very different direction. We need to ensure that we're strong financially and we can contribute to that improvement program overall with respect to infrastructure. Bringing partners together and the nodes of the supply chain on the same page, I think, will also be a task that we have to manage.
And you talk about that. I mean, a new word, the first time that I've heard that, I've heard about, Mexico and some of the other ports, but Canada, it seems so far north, but yet it's now a competitor.
Yes.
It is, and they're investing not just in their port infrastructure, significant investment, but they're also building rail connections, trying to really replicate what we naturally have here in Southern California.
So what kind of capital projects are underway, infrastructure kinds of improvements? I know we've seen some in the media, but maybe you could give a little more detail.
Sure.
Yeah, we're spending about $1 million a day on our capital improvement plan, from the automation facility at Traypac to the deepening of the waters around the Houston Terminal project, as well as the infrastructure around our 110 freeway to move trucks a little more freely and away from neighborhoods. We'll continue in that mode for the immediate term.
And we're pretty intense as well. We're in midway through a $4 billion improvement program, investment in infrastructure. We're spending about $600 million this year on a number of projects. The two major ones is a new bridge replacing the Gerald Dismond Bridge. That's coming out of the ground now, and it's going to be pretty iconic. I mean, it's going to be the tallest structure in Long Beach. It'll change the skyline, but more to the point of the container business, we're opening up this year phase one of our Middle Harbor project, which is a very significant investment, almost $2 billion in what will be a very, very large terminal operation, handle about 3 million TEUs or containers across those docks. And that will increase our capacity in phase one by about 10%. And once we bring on phase two, it's about a 20% improvement or increase in our actual container capacity. So it's a very big investment.
Between the two ports, go back, and people don't understand how everybody sort of works together, but I represent the Marina Del Rey area, and obviously we had dredging issues up there from time to time. And we're able to work a situation out through the Army Corps of using that bagged up rolls down there to help you in your Middle Harbor project and others. And those 40 million tons of dirt or whatever it was, the sand, kept them off the highways and freeways of going to landfills. So there's a lot going on there that people out there that they really don't understand as it relates to infrastructure, but public agencies working together. So we talked about Mexico, we've talked about Canada. What about, down below? What are we talking about there with the Panama Canal? I understand it's about 85% completed. Does that open up competition straight through like to a Mississippi?
Oh, it'll definitely open up competition, and we welcome that. More choices for the cargo owner and the shipping line creates a better supply chain. But it also creates opportunity for us. We see that there could be greater trade with the east coast of South America. John alluded to that earlier, and I think that'll only enhance our competitive standing down line.
When you look at, for example, Apple Computer and where they build their iPhones and all their products, naturally you'd think they're built in China. No longer. They're now built in Brazil. So that creates, we have a massive consumer market here in the western states, and of course, where's that going to come? It's going to come up through the canal and to our West Coast port complex. So, we view this, and in fact, we're aggressively pursuing opportunities in Latin America to really develop trade there.
So how is technology changing your operations down there? Either the greening piece or other pieces of technology?
I think that's going to be one of the bigger plays in the future. And John and I have talked this on regular occasions. There are data points within the supply chain everywhere, whether it be in the local trucking industry or all the way up to when a merchant places a purchase order to the manufacturing facility in China. We as an industry need to harness that information. We think it can make the supply chain stronger, deliver some forecasting and predictability that we lack today to create better fluidity within the chain.
The big thing that Gene and I have been pushing is the whole end-to-end custodial control of the process. When you look at the supply chain, it's very fragmented today. And really it's very silo-driven, so people are not sharing information as they could. So at the end of the day, that container, we have the ability to track that container all the way through the entire supply chain process to its destination. That's not being done today, and there's not a sense of certainty about delivery. We can change the game within our supply chain by applying information technology to track and control really the movement of those goods.
So access is the important thing for data. I mean, obviously the technology is there to access the data. Absolutely. If you can get a hold of the data. So expansion, bigness, size, everything else, all the good things that are going on. Obviously you still have neighborhood issues that you have to deal with. So I know that both of your ports have been working very hard to be on the forefront of the environmental referendums of things that you're doing down there. Maybe you could sort of comment on what you're doing at each of the ports on the environmental piece.
Yeah, the Clean Air Action Plan from nearly a decade ago has seen a decrease by 80 to 90% in diesel particulate matters, NOx, and SOx. Some great achievements, but it's time to raise the bar again. We held our first environmental summit last Friday over at Banning's Landing and had more than 150 people attend, including the regulators, the environmental justice folks, and other neighborhood observers that want to make a difference. Port of Long Beach and the Port of Los Angeles were there together to look for ideas and generate solutions as we move forward to our next level of environmental growth.
And we're also looking, we focused all of our tremendous achievements as a port complex on mobile sources, meaning trucks and trains and ships. And that's still an important focus, but we're also now looking at stationary sources of pollution. So as we go forward, we're going to be looking at energy policies and energy investments that will not only increase the sustainability of the port complex, but will also further reduce our carbon footprint. So, the thing that's most gratifying is that for both ports and the complex in general, our neighborhoods now view us as allies, not as the enemy. And that's a big change over the last 10 years. Big change.
So we have a lot of things going on down at the ports, and I think I really appreciate you both taking the time to join us today and to share your thoughts and ideas and all the things that are going on. I tell everyone it's the best kept secret of the American economy right here in our own backyard between the Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach. So we really appreciate your time, and thank you for joining us today.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both very much.
Great seeing you.
When Dennis Walker was in high school, his locker partner, Dave, stole his girlfriend. And Dennis realized Dave was not his friend. When Dennis got satellite, he also got an unreliable signal. And he realized satellite was not his friend. Now he has Charter and a reliable weatherproof signal, just like thousands of others who switch every month. Take it from Dennis. Satellite is not your friend. Get a reliable signal, rain or shine, with Charter.
Thank you again for tuning in to Dialed In. I want to thank our special guests, John Slangerup and Gene Soroka, for taking the time to join me today. The ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles are two of the main cogs in our country's economic engine. Billions of dollars in goods move through these ports each year, creating millions of jobs along the way. From imports to exports, electronics to petroleum, many of the goods we buy, sell, and use every day journey through these ports, the Port of Long Beach and Los Angeles. And if you've never visited the largest ports in the Western Hemisphere, both ports, Long Beach and Los Angeles, offer boat tours of the harbors to the public. I urge you to take the time to come visit. Learn more about how these ports play such a critical role in our nation's economic livelihood. Thank you again for tuning in to Dialed In. We'll be back next month with an all-new show.